This video is sponsored by Blinkist. Use the link in the description and you'll receive 1 free week and 25% off an annual premium membership. Considered one of the most consequential thinkers of the early modern period, Baruch Spinoza proposed new revolutionary ideas about reason, knowledge, free will, the nature of God, and humanity's relationship with everything. As one of the early pioneers of the intellectual movements of rationalism and the Enlightenment, Spinoza merged and advanced aspects of philosophy, religion, psychology, and science, seeking new ways of understanding, through reason, how one could live a more joyous and contented life in greater harmony with the cosmos. Spinoza was born in Amsterdam, Netherlands in 1632. He was born into a modest Jewish family and raised in a Spanish-Portuguese Jewish community in the city. He received a traditional Jewish upbringing and education and is understood to have been a very intelligent and scholarly child. As Spinoza grew older, however, he also grew increasingly skeptical of his Jewish faith and organized religion in general. In his 20s, Spinoza would be exposed to modern philosophy, and this would ultimately lead to the final break that separated him completely from his religious upbringing and set him out on his journey toward new, revolutionary thinking. Around the same time, when Spinoza was 23, he was banned and shunned by the Jewish community, including his own family. Although the precise reason for his excommunication is unknown, Spinoza's masterwork, The Ethics, which would be published years later in 1677, reveals aspects of what Spinoza likely asserted and what likely led to his excommunication: staunch, radical challenges to the fundamental tenets of religion. Throughout his work, Spinoza would reject the validity of things like traditional concepts of an immortal soul, the legitimacy of the Bible, divine law, and the very nature of God. Understandably, this did not go over very well for many at the time. Spinoza wrote, however, "I do not know how to teach philosophy without becoming a disturber of the peace." In place of traditional religion, Spinoza wanted to invent new religious concepts that moved away from superstition, blind faith, and dogma, and instead moved toward objective understandings of the universe, arrived at through reason. In terms of understanding Spinoza's attempt to do so, it is important to understand his conception of nature. Spinoza divided the universe, or being, into 3 parts: substance, attributes, and modes. Substance here referring to the material that things are made out of, something in itself that needs nothing else in order for it to exist or be conceived. Attributes being the qualities that comprise the essence of a thing in order for it to be conceived and described, and modes being the individual form a thing takes. For Spinoza, in order for things to come into existence, and for anything to exist at all, there must be an underlying substance of nature that is unaffected by anything else and does not need anything else in order for it to exist. It must be universal, infinite, and independent. A single underlying infinite substance with infinite expressions or modes. Or put differently, one infinite being, and everything that exists is just a different way of being. Spinoza would refer to this infinite independent substance as nature or God. Whatever is in God, and nothing can be or be conceived without God, Spinoza wrote. For Spinoza, God is not a man, a woman, or a human of any sort. It does not have any personal interest, special consideration of humankind, or any conscious will at all. Any conceptions that liken God to this, for Spinoza, are merely an anthropomorphized projection of the human imagination. Although the term God, of course, has religious implications, Spinoza's God arguably requires no religious faith, or at least very little comparatively speaking. And more importantly, one does not necessarily need to throw out scientific and rational thinking in order to discuss, agree with, or benefit from the philosophy Spinoza builds from here. Albert Einstein famously said, "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with fates and actions of human beings." This different conception of God is fundamentally important to the rest of Spinoza's philosophy. Because if God is simply the natural order of the way things are, according to the laws of nature, we can learn what God wants, so to speak, and how to live well in the universe by simply studying and understanding, through reason, the nature of the universe. For Spinoza, this is the task of humanity and the way to a joyous life. Specifically, this would come from attempting to understand the causal relationship amongst things in nature. Nature operates through a process of causality, a continuous webbing of cause and effect, everything affected by something else and everything affecting something else. And since, for Spinoza, nothing is outside of nature and nothing is separate from nature, this process of causality also includes us, including the human mind. And so, with this, Spinoza would argue that our sense of free will is an illusion. Everything we are, everything we do, is the product of being affected by other modes of nature, every feeling, emotion, thought, choice, and action. Although this might appear despairing and fatalistic, Spinoza would go on to attempt to argue that through this knowledge, we can obtain a new level of understanding ourselves and a different kind of freedom. The highest activity a human being can attain is learning for understanding, because to understand is to be free, wrote Spinoza. Since we are a part of nature, bound to the laws of nature, which operate consistently and verifiably through causality, we can understand and gain perspective about how things affect us, and we can make better decisions and evaluations for what we do, how we interact with the world, how we respond, and how we treat and perceive things. We can thus become active participants in the unfolding structure of the universe. In this, according to Spinoza, we become free, at least in the sense that what we do and experience will no longer purely be the result of our external world, but our internal world, the intuitions of nature guided by our higher faculties of reason. We will thus know when and how to better moderate, relegate, silence, or embrace our automatic responses to the world, our emotions and passions and desires, so to best ensure the preservation and quality of our lives. Spinoza wrote, "Human infirmity in moderating and checking the emotions I name bondage. For, when a man is a prey to his emotions, he is not his own master, but lies at the mercy of fortune, so much so that he is often compelled, while seeing that which is better for him, to follow that which is worse." Understanding how things are liberates one from the chains of how things are. A prisoner is only a prisoner if they are restricted from where they want to go. In knowing how things inexorably are and why things are inevitably that way, one becomes wise and content with where they are, mitigating the desire to be elsewhere. The free person is perhaps merely conscious of the necessity of all things, including their own lack of freedom. Though we are finite and temporal beings bound to an individual myopic view of everything, through reason and intellect, we can understand things that are bigger than ourselves. We can gain perspective from things that are bigger than ourselves. We can see existence through what Spinoza referred to as subspecie aeternitatis, under the aspect of eternity. When we see the whole of nature, of which we are somehow an infinitesimal part, inexorably and forever locked into, we recognize that all things that happen are inevitable and necessary, that what is good or bad is relative to us, but is an impersonal unfolding of time and space to everything else, that we are no more but no less important, that everyone and everything is an unchosen part of the whole, a single particle amidst a sea of an eternal substance of continual motion and reconfiguration. This perspective arguably lessens the power that everything has over us, by realizing our meagerness and inexorable interconnectedness with everything, affected by an unending and continuing line of causality, which we did not and can never really choose. We become less rigidly attached to what has and will come. We become less anxious about doing exactly the right or wrong things. We become less regretful. We become less scornful. We become more indifferent to that which we cannot control nor change. We understand the storms, the lions, the snakes, the people we fear and despise. And finally, we gain a sense of poise, liberation, and peace. Of course, Spinoza's ideas are not without reasonable critiques. If everything is cause and effect, including the mind, how can the sort of freedom Spinoza defines actually be considered freedom? If every event is a reaction to some prior event, would not one's own nature and the ability to reason and understand also be a product of causality? Would not one's own understanding of causality be a product of it? How can one be free because they follow a certain intellectual line of causality but not another, though they never really fundamentally chose or controlled either? Moreover, can one ever truly have enough knowledge to have a sufficient understanding of what is happening, of what is good or best or true? How can one, even at the collective scale of humanity, understand enough to know how everything is working and will work in the future to properly determine what is truly and enduringly optimal? Though many questions like these are still left open in Spinoza's work, his ability to amalgamate the various methods of human thinking, break free from indoctrination and antiquated conceptions of being, and innovatively advance the possibility and methods of human understanding, he opened the doors for new ways of considering questions like these, and ultimately changed the course of everything forever. This video was sponsored by Blinkist. One of the most difficult parts of actively learning throughout life is simply maintaining the time and focus. Though no one would disagree with the obvious value of regularly learning and reading, sifting through tons of complete books can often be cumbersome and difficult, and many of us neglect the habit. Blinkist is a unique app that helps solve this problem by facilitating, assisting, and supplementing easy, efficient, and strong reading habits. By condensing over 5,500 of the best nonfiction books and podcasts across 27 different categories, Blinkist allows you to read or listen to 15-minute book explainers covering a huge range of information and authors, allowing you to easily discover new books, derive new understandings, and refresh yourself on important ideas and lessons whenever and wherever you are. If you're interested in further exploring rationalism and Western philosophy in general, Blinkist has plenty of fantastic titles that provide insights into major works like Meditations on First Philosophy by René Descartes, Critique of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant, and Beyond Good and Evil by Friedrich Nietzsche, which Blinkist provides thoughtfully organized breakdowns of, allowing you to easily traverse through these seminal works of philosophy and uncover groundbreaking ideas that changed history and will perhaps change you. Through Blinkist's feature, Blinkist Connect, premium users can also share their account with another person for the same price, essentially providing 2 memberships for the price of 1. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code to start your 7-day free trial and get 25% off an annual premium membership. The free 7-day trial can be canceled at any time within the trial period. And of course, thank you so much for watching in general, and see you next video.